When I speak of focusing on yourself, I am not speaking of the little self, the outer garment that you wear in this world of shadows. I am speaking of your true self, your wonderful human imagination, which is God in action within you. The eternal body of man is the imagination that is God himself, as Blake so beautifully stated. And it is this self upon which all of your attention must be placed if you wish to transform your world. Let me share with you a story from my own experience. Many years ago, a dear friend of mine desired a particular position in his company. There were many others competing for this same position, all of them with seemingly better qualifications. The world would have told him to focus on improving his resume, on working longer hours, on impressing his superiors. But I instructed him differently. I told him, focus not on the competition, or even on the outer actions you might take. Instead, focus on yourself, on your consciousness, on the feeling of already being in that position. I instructed him to create a scene in his imagination that would imply the fulfillment of his desire. Each night before sleep, he would imagine his superior congratulating him on his new position. He would feel the handshake, hear the words of congratulation, experience the joy and satisfaction of achievement. He persisted in this assumption until it felt natural to him. Within a month, against all outward odds, he was called into his superior's office and offered precisely the position he had imagined. Those who knew of the competition were shocked. They could not understand how he had been selected when others appeared more qualified on paper. But you who are here tonight know the secret. He had focused on himself, on changing his consciousness, and the outer world reshaped itself accordingly. You see, the great secret is this: consciousness is the only reality. All that you perceive outside yourself is nothing more than the outpicturing of your states of consciousness. Change your consciousness and you change your world. This is the law from which there is no deviation. As within, so without. As above, so below. These are not mere poetic phrases, but exact descriptions of how this universe operates. Now, let me make this very clear. When I say focus on yourself, I am not advocating selfishness or narcissism as the world understands these terms. I am advocating the recognition of a principle that lies at the very foundation of life. The entire vast world that you see is an extension of yourself. There is nothing but yourself. Therefore, to change anything in your world, you must first change yourself, not through outer effort and struggle, but through a change in consciousness. This principle is taught throughout Scripture, though it is veiled in symbolism and metaphor. When the Bible says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you," it is telling you to focus on yourself, on the divine within you. The kingdom is not some distant realm, but your own wonderful human imagination. And when you focus there first, all things, all the outer circumstances and conditions of your life will be added unto you. Consider the lilies of the field. They do not toil or spin, yet Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed as beautifully as they are. What is the secret of the lily? It does not focus on becoming, it simply is. It fulfills its own nature perfectly without effort, without strain, without comparing itself to other lilies or to the roses nearby. It focuses on being itself, and in that perfect self-expression, it creates beauty that shocks all who behold it. You too must learn to focus on being rather than becoming. The world will tell you constantly about what you should become, about the gap between where you are and where you ought to be. But I tell you, there is no gap except in your consciousness. When you focus on yourself, on your imagination, the God within you, and assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you close that imaginary gap instantly. Let me share with you a principle that many find difficult to accept, but which is nevertheless true. You already are everything that you want to be. You already have everything that you want to have. You already are where you want to be. The entire vast universe exists within you now, complete and perfect. Your work is not to create your good. Your work is to become aware of what already is. This awareness, this change in consciousness, is achieved through the controlled use of your imagination. You must learn to focus your imagination on the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Feel the joy, the satisfaction, the fulfillment now, as if your desire were already an accomplished fact. For in the realm of consciousness, in the dimension of imagination, it is already done. And since consciousness is the only reality, if it is done there, it must in time be made manifest in what you call the outer world. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. You are thinking, but Neville, I have tried to imagine and nothing has happened. To this I say you have not really imagined. To imagine, in the sense that I use the term, means to enter into the feeling of your wish fulfilled and to persist in that feeling until it becomes your dominant state. Most people merely visualize their desires, seeing them as images outside themselves, but never enter into the feeling of already having what they desire. Remember, sensation precedes manifestation. If you would experience the fulfillment of your desires in the outer world, you must first experience the feeling of fulfillment in consciousness. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is the soul of the wish. The feeling is God in action. Now, why do I say that focusing on yourself in this manner will shock everyone? Because when you truly practice this principle, results will come into your life that the world cannot explain by its laws of cause and effect. Things will happen that appear to be coincidences, that seem miraculous to those who do not understand the law. Opportunities will appear as if from nowhere. People will be drawn to you without your seeking them out. Circumstances will arrange themselves to aid you without your planning. I recall a lady who came to me in despair. Her marriage was failing, her finances were in ruins, and her health was deteriorating. The world would have advised her to focus on fixing each of these problems through outer action, marriage counseling, financial planning, medical treatment. But I advised her to focus on herself, on her consciousness. I told her to assume the feeling that her life was perfect in every way. Each night before sleep, she would imagine herself lying beside her husband in perfect harmony. She would feel the peace, the security, the love between them. She would feel the relief of financial abundance, the sensation of perfect health. She focused entirely on these feelings, persisting until they became more real to her than the outer conditions of her life. Within 6 weeks, her husband, who had been cold and distant, began to change. Without any discussion between them, he became attentive and loving. A relative who had not contacted her in years suddenly called with news of an inheritance that solved her financial problems. And her health, which had been declining for months, began to improve without any change in her medical treatment. Everyone around her was shocked by these transformations. They could not understand how her circumstances had changed so dramatically without any visible action on her part. But she understood. She had focused on herself, on changing her consciousness, and her outer world had reshaped itself to match her new inner state. This is the law, and it never fails. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. This is not merely a poetic statement, but a precise description of how reality operates. Now, let me be crystal clear about something that many students of this law fail to grasp. The change in consciousness must precede the change in circumstances. You cannot wait to feel the joy of fulfillment until after your desire has manifested. You must feel that joy now, in spite of all evidence to the contrary. This is what the Bible means when it says to call those things which be not as though they were. This takes courage. It takes faith. It takes a willingness to be thought foolish by those who judge by appearances. But those who persist in this practice eventually shock everyone around them with the seemingly miraculous transformations that occur in their lives. I had a student once, a man who desired to be a successful author. He had written several books, but none had been published. The world would have told him to focus on improving his writing, on studying the market, on networking with publishers. But I told him to focus on himself, on his consciousness. I instructed him to sleep each night in the assumption that he was already a successful author. He created a scene in which he was autographing his books for eager readers. He felt the pen in his hand, heard the words of appreciation from his readers, experienced the satisfaction of achievement. He did this night after night, persisting until the feeling of being a successful author was more real to him than the feeling of being rejected. Within 2 months, he received a call from a publisher who had rejected one of his manuscripts the year before. The publisher explained that he had been cleaning out his files and had come across the manuscript again. Something prompted him to read it a second time. And on this reading, he found it compelling. He offered my student a contract on the spot. Within a year, the book was not only published, but became a bestseller. The publisher was shocked. The critics were shocked. Even the author was shocked by the speed of his success. But he had applied the law, focusing on himself, on his consciousness, and the outer world had rearranged itself accordingly. You see, when you focus on yourself in this manner, you are not being selfish in the worldly sense. You are simply recognizing and applying the fundamental law of creation. All things are created first in consciousness. Therefore, by focusing on changing your consciousness, you are working at the causal level rather than the level of effects. This is true efficiency, true power. The Bible tells us in the beginning was the Word. What is this Word? It is not merely spoken language. The Word is the inner conversation, the feeling, the consciousness from which all things proceed. When you focus on changing this inner word, this inner conversation, you are working at the very beginning of creation. You are working with God, for God and your own wonderful human imagination are one. Now, many of you may be thinking, this sounds too easy. Surely I must do something in the outer world to achieve my desires. And I say to you, yes, you will do things in the outer world, but these actions will flow naturally from your changed consciousness. They will not be actions taken to achieve your desire. They will be actions taken from the consciousness of already having fulfilled your desire. This is the subtle but crucial difference that most people miss. When your consciousness changed, you will take different actions, not because you are forcing yourself to do so, but because it is natural to your new state of consciousness. The actions themselves do not create the fulfillment of your desire. They express the fulfillment that has already taken place in consciousness. Consider this principle. Everything in your world is yourself pushed out. Every person, every circumstance, every condition is an aspect of your own consciousness made visible. Therefore, when you meet with obstacles or difficulties, do not fight against them, for that is fighting against yourself. Instead, change yourself, your consciousness, and the obstacle either transform or disappear entirely. I recall a gentleman who came to me complaining of a difficult supervisor at work. This supervisor seemed determined to make his life miserable, criticizing everything he did, blocking his advancement, turning others against him. The world would have advised him to confront the supervisor, to complain to higher management, to look for another job. But I advised him to focus on himself, on his consciousness. I said to him, the supervisor you experience is yourself pushed out. Change your concept of him in your consciousness, and he must change in your experience. The man was skeptical but willing to try. Each night before sleep, he would imagine his supervisor congratulating him on his work, treating him with respect and appreciation. He persisted in this assumption, refusing to be swayed by his daytime experiences, which initially continued to be negative. Within 3 weeks, the supervisor's attitude began to change. Without any confrontation or discussion, he became more supportive. He began to praise the very work he had previously criticized. Eventually, he became this man's strongest advocate in the company. The man's colleagues were shocked by the transformation. They could not understand how such a dramatic change had occurred without any outer action. But this man understood. He had focused on himself, on changing his consciousness, and his outer world had reshaped itself accordingly. This is the law, and it never fails. Change yourself and you change your world. Now, let me address a question that often arises. How long must one persist in a new assumption before it manifests in the outer world? The answer is, it varies according to the nature of the desire and the intensity and consistency of your assumption. Some desires manifest almost instantly, others take weeks or months. But this is certain, when the feeling of your wish fulfilled becomes your dominant state, your desire must objectify itself in your world. The Bible says, in patience, possess ye your souls. True patience is not waiting passively for something to happen. True patience is knowing that what you have claimed in consciousness is already yours, and therefore living in the calm assurance that it will appear at the perfect time. This patience, this assurance, this faith is itself a form of focusing on yourself, on your consciousness, rather than on the outer world of shadows. I want to emphasize something that many students miss. This principle works whether you believe in it or not. It is not a matter of faith in the religious sense, but a law as exact as mathematics. Your consciousness is always creating your reality, whether you are conscious of the process or not. Most people create by default, allowing their consciousness to be shaped by outside influences. But you, by understanding this principle, can create deliberately by focusing on yourself, on your consciousness. Consider how most people live. They wake in the morning and immediately focus on the outer world. They read or watch the news, absorbing images of conflict, lack, and limitation. They review their problems, their tasks, their responsibilities. In other words, they focus entirely outside themselves and then wonder why their lives never change. But those who understand the law live differently. They wake in the morning and immediately focus on themselves, on their consciousness. They enter into the feeling of already being who they want to be, already having what they want to have. They feed their minds not on the appearances of the outer world, but on the truth of their inner being. And by so doing, they reshape their experiences in ways that shock everyone around them. I had a student who was deeply in debt. The world would have told her to focus on budgeting, on working extra hours, on negotiating with creditors. But I told her to focus on herself, on her consciousness. I instructed her to fall asleep each night feeling the relief and security of financial abundance. I told her to feel the joy of paying her bills easily, the satisfaction of having more than enough. She created a simple scene in which she was looking at her bank statement showing a substantial balance. She felt the relief, the security, the freedom that such a balance would bring. She persisted in this assumption night after night, refusing to be discouraged by her current financial statements which continued to show lack. Within 2 months, a series of unexpected events occurred. A project she had worked on years before suddenly began generating substantial royalties. A relative she rarely spoke with called to repay a loan she had nearly forgotten. A property she owned that had been considered almost worthless was suddenly desired by a developer who offered her 10 times its assessed value. Within a short time, all her debts were paid, and she had a significant surplus in her bank account. Her friends were shocked. Her financial advisor was shocked. But she understood what had happened. She had focused on herself, on changing her consciousness from one of lack to one of abundance, and her outer world had reshaped itself accordingly. You see, the outer world has no choice but to rearrange itself to match your inner assumptions. This is not magic, it is law. As within, so without is not merely a beautiful saying, but an exact description of how reality operates. Change the within, and the without must change. Now, let me speak to those of you who have tried to apply this law without success. The most common reason for failure is divided attention. You affirm your desire in consciousness, perhaps even feel it briefly, but then return your attention to the facts of your current experience. Remember, attention is the key. Whatever you place your attention on, you claim as your own. If you divide your attention between your desire and your current limitations, you remain suspended between the two. The secret is to give your desire your undivided attention, to focus so completely on the feeling of your wish fulfilled that your current limitations fade from consciousness. This does not mean denying the facts of your present experience when you must deal with them practically. It means not giving those facts any power to shape your consciousness. You recognize them as the shadows of past assumptions, not the substance of your future experience. Another reason for apparent failure is attempting to dictate the how of your desire's fulfillment. Your work is to focus on the what, on the end result, on the feeling of fulfillment. The how, the means by which your desire will be realized, is not your concern. The infinite intelligence that sustains the universe paths that your limited consciousness cannot conceive. When you try to dictate the means, you limit the fulfillment to your own restricted understanding. I recall a woman who desired to visit Paris but had no financial means to do so. The world would have told her to save her money, to plan for years in the future. to compromise on accommodation and experiences. But I told her to focus on herself, on her consciousness. I instructed her to fall asleep each night in the assumption that she was already in Paris. She would imagine looking up at the Eiffel Tower, feeling the cobblestones under her feet, hearing French spoken around her, tasting French cuisine. She persisted in this assumption night after night, feeling the joy and satisfaction of already being in Paris. She made no outward plans, took no physical steps toward her desire. Yet within 3 months, she received a call from a friend who worked for an airline. The friend explained that she had 2 tickets to Paris, all expenses paid, as a bonus from her company. She could take anyone she chose. And she had thought of this woman. Within a month, they were in Paris together and staying at a beautiful hotel, experiencing everything she had imagined. Her family and friends were shocked. They knew her financial situation and could not understand how such an opportunity had come to her. But she understood. She had focused on herself, on changing her consciousness, and her outer world had reshaped itself accordingly. You see, when you focus on yourself in this manner, you align yourself with the creative power of the universe. You move from the position of a beggar, asking for crumbs, to the position of a creator, claiming your divine inheritance. This is what distinguishes those who transform their lives from those who merely wish for transformation. The Bible states, "If ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you." This is not hyperbole, but a precise statement of law. The faith referred to is not faith in some external power, but faith in yourself, in your consciousness, as the creative power in your world. When you truly understand that your consciousness is God in action, that your human imagination is the divine body, you will no longer beg for your good or struggle to attain it. You will simply focus on yourself, on your consciousness, assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, knowing that by this assumption you have set in motion the laws of creation that must bring your desire to pass. Now I want to address another question that often arises. What about the desires of others that may conflict with your own? If consciousness is the only reality, and if we are all shaping our experiences through our assumptions, how do we account for the conflicts that arise in our interactions with others? The answer is simple yet profound. In reality, there is no other. What you experience as other people are aspects of yourself pushed out. Therefore, no one can be in your world as anything other than what you are conscious of them being. This does not mean that other individuals do not have their own consciousness and free will. It means that your experience of them is determined by your consciousness of them. Consider this principle. Everyone in your world is yourself pushed out. Therefore, when you change your consciousness of another, they must change in your experience. They may resist this change temporarily, drawn by the momentum of your past assumptions about them. But if you persist in your new consciousness, they must conform to it or disappear from your world. I recall a man who was in conflict with his business partner. The world would have advised him to confront his partner, to negotiate, perhaps to dissolve the partnership. But I advised him to focus on himself, on his consciousness. I told him, your partner is yourself pushed out. Change your concept of him in your consciousness, and he must change in your experience. Each night before sleep, this man would imagine a harmonious conversation with his partner. He would feel the mutual respect, the cooperation, the shared vision for their business. He persisted in this assumption, refusing to be swayed by their daytime interactions, which initially continued to be conflictual. Within a month, the partner's attitude began to change. Without any confrontation or discussion about their problems, he became more cooperative, more respectful, more aligned with my student's vision for the business. Eventually, they developed a partnership that was mutually beneficial and harmonious. The man's friends and colleagues were shocked by the transformation. They could not understand how such a dramatic change had occurred without any outer effort to resolve the conflict. But this man understood. He had focused on himself, on changing his consciousness, and his outer world had reshaped itself accordingly. This is the law, and it never fails. Change yourself and you change your world. I want to emphasize again that this principle works not just in isolated instances, but consistently in every area of your life. Your health, your wealth, your relationships, your career, all are outpicturings of your states of consciousness. Therefore, to transform any aspect of your life, focus not on the outer conditions, but on yourself, on your consciousness. Consider your body. The world tells you that your body is subject to genetics, to aging, to disease processes beyond your control. But I tell you, your body is an outpicturing of your consciousness. Change your consciousness, and your body must change. This is not to deny the value of proper nutrition, exercise, and medical care. It is to recognize that these outer actions are most effective when they flow from a consciousness of health rather than a consciousness of disease. I recall a woman who had been diagnosed with a chronic condition for which conventional medicine offered no cure. The world told her she must learn to live with her limitations. But she understood the principle of focusing on herself, on her consciousness. Each night before sleep, she would imagine herself engaging in activities that her condition had made impossible. She would feel the joy of movement, the pleasure of pain-free existence, the satisfaction of boundless energy. She persisted in this assumption, refusing to be discouraged by her daily symptoms, which initially continued. Gradually, her condition began to improve. Tests that had previously confirmed her diagnosis began to show normal results. Eventually, her doctors pronounced her completely healed, though they could not explain the mechanism of her recovery. Her friends and family were shocked by her transformation, but she understood. She had focused on herself, on changing her consciousness, and her body had reshaped itself accordingly. You see, when you focus on yourself in this manner, you align yourself with the creative power that sustains the universe. You move from being a victim of circumstances to being a conscious creator of your experience. This shift in consciousness is what truly shocks everyone, for it defies all conventional understanding of cause and effect. The world believes in struggle, in effort, in the slow, incremental improvement of conditions. But those who understand the law know that transformation can be instantaneous in consciousness and rapid in manifestation. When you truly change your consciousness, you collapse time. What might have taken years through conventional means can manifest in days or weeks when you focus on yourself, on your consciousness. I want to share with you a principle that underlies all successful application of this law. The feeling of fulfillment must precede the outer manifestation. You cannot wait to feel successful until after you have achieved success. You must feel successful now in consciousness, and from that state of consciousness will flow the actions and circumstances that result in outer success. This is what the Bible means when it says, before they call, I will answer. The fulfillment exists in consciousness before the outer call, for it is made. This is the true order of creation, first in consciousness, then in manifestation. Now, as we begin to draw our discussion to a close, I want to address one more vital point. The practice of focusing on yourself, on your consciousness, is not something you do occasionally when you desire something specific. It is a way of life. It is the consistent recognition that what you are conscious of being, you must become. Each day, each hour, each moment, you are selecting the states of consciousness that will shape your future experiences. Most people make these selections unconsciously, reacting to outer stimuli, accepting the suggestions of others, falling back on habitual patterns of thought and feeling. But you, by understanding this principle, can make these selections consciously, deliberately focusing on those states that you desire to express in your outer world. This is the art of revision, of consciously reinterpreting the events of your day in a manner that aligns with your desires rather than your fears. At the end of each day, before you sleep, review the events that were less than perfect. Do not simply recall them as they seem to occur. Revise them in your imagination. See them and feel them as you would have preferred them to be. By this practice, you literally rewrite your past and reshape your future. Remember, the past exists only in memory, the future only in imagination. Both are malleable, subject to your consciousness now. By focusing on yourself, on your consciousness, you free yourself from the limitations of past experiences and open yourself to the boundless possibilities that exist in the imagination. In closing, let me remind you of the central truth of our discussion. You are the operant power in your world. Not some distant God, not circumstance, not other people, not your past, but you, through your consciousness, through your imagination. Therefore, focus on yourself, on controlling your states of consciousness, and you will shock everyone with the transformations that occur in your life. For when you truly understand and apply this principle, nothing is impossible to you. As the Bible proclaims, all things are possible to him that believeth. This belief is not mere intellectual assent to a proposition. It is the full acceptance in consciousness of the reality of your desire. It is the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the assumption of the consciousness of already being the person you want to be, already having what you want to have. Focus on yourself, on your consciousness, and shock everyone by demonstrating in your life the truth that consciousness is the only reality, that imagination creates reality, that assumption, though false to fact, if persisted in, will harden into fact. For this is the law and the prophets, the secret that has been hidden from the ages, but is now revealed to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Go now in the knowledge of your own divine nature, of your own creative power. Focus on your consciousness and watch in wonder as your world reshapes itself to match your assumptions. For this is the promise, this is the law, this is the fulfillment of all that has been written. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Imagine, if you will, a world where everything you desire is already yours. A world where the mere act of wanting something pushes it further away, while the state of already possessing it in your imagination draws it closer to your physical reality. This is not a fanciful notion, but the very law by which our universe operates. Let us begin by understanding that your consciousness is the only reality. Everything that you perceive in your outer world is but a reflection of your inner states. When you say, I want, or I need, you are affirming to the universe that you do not have. And in doing so, you perpetuate that very state of lack. But when you shift your consciousness to a state of already having, when you no longer need it because in your imagination you already possess it, that is when the outer world begins to rearrange itself to match your inner conviction. Consider for a moment the nature of God. In Scripture are told, I am that I am. This is not merely a name, but a description of the creative power that resides within each of us. When you say I am, you are invoking this divine power. And whatever follows I am becomes the mold into which your life experiences are cast. So when you no longer need something, when you have moved beyond the state of wanting and into the state of being, you are aligning yourself with this creative power. You are declaring to the universe, I am that which I desire to be. And the universe, faithful to its nature, begins to reflect this new state of being. Let me share with you a principle that may at first seem counterintuitive, but which holds the key to unlocking this paradox. The principle is this: act as though it were impossible to fail. When you truly embody this principle, you are no longer striving or struggling to achieve. You are simply being that which you desire to be. Imagine a man who desires wealth. As long as he focuses on his current lack of money, as long as he says, I need more money, or I want to be rich, he is affirming his current state of poverty. But the moment he begins to feel wealthy, when he walks and talks and thinks as a wealthy person would, even before a single penny has changed in his bank account, he has set in motion the forces that will bring about his financial abundance. This is the art of revision, of rewriting your own story. You see, my dear friends, time is merely a concept created by our consciousness. The past, present, and future exists simultaneously in the eternal now. When you revise your concept of self, When you live from the end as though your desire were already fulfilled, you are really vast and present and future all at once. But here is where the paradox deepens. As you begin to live in this state of fulfillment, as you embody the consciousness of already having that which you desire, something miraculous happens. You begin to detach from the outcome. The burning need, the desperate wanting begins to fade away. And it is precisely in this moment of detachment that your desire often manifests in the physical world. Why is this so? Because in releasing your attachment in no longer needing it, you have aligned yourself with the natural flow of the universe. You have moved from a state of resistance, of pushing against what is, to a state of allowance. And in this state of allowance, miracles become commonplace. Think of it like this: when you clench your fist tightly around something, your muscles become tense, rigid. But when you relax your grip, when you open your hand, you create space for new things to come into your life. This is the essence of letting go, of no longer needing. But let me be clear, my friends. This is not about becoming indifferent or apathetic. Far from it. This is about cultivating a deep, unshakable faith in the creative power of your own consciousness. It is about knowing with every fiber of your being that what you desire is already yours in the realm of imagination, and therefore must manifest in your physical reality. Remember, the outer world is dead. It has no life of its own. It is your consciousness that animates it, that gives it meaning and form. When you change your consciousness, when you shift your inner state, the outer world has no choice but to conform to this new pattern. Let us explore this concept further through the lens of love and relationships. Many seek a loving partner, focusing on their current state of loneliness or lack. They say, I want to find my soulmate, or I need someone to complete me. But in doing so, they are affirming their incompleteness, their lack of love. Now, imagine instead that you begin to embody the state of being in a loving relationship. You feel the warmth, the joy, the companionship, as though your ideal partner were already by your side. You live each day from this state of fulfillment. What happens then? Often it is precisely when you no longer feel the desperate need for a relationship that the perfect partner appears in your life. This is not coincidence or chance. This is the law of assumption at work. By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, by living in the end, you have changed your vibration, your energy, and the universe in its infinite wisdom brings to you that which matches your new state of being. But the paradox grows even deeper as you begin to live from this state of fulfillment. As you embody the consciousness of already having a loving relationship, you may find that your need for an external partner diminishes. You discover that the love you sought outside yourself was always within you. And in this discovery, you become truly whole, truly complete. It is from this place of wholeness that you can then enter into a relationship not from a place of need or lack, but from a place of abundance and joy. And it is these relationships born of wholeness rather than need that are often the most fulfilling and lasting. The same principle applies to all areas of life, health, career, personal growth. When you no longer need perfect health because you already feel vibrant and alive in your imagination, that is when your body often begins to heal itself. When you no longer desperately seek success because you already feel successful in your mind's eye, that is when opportunities seem to magically appear. But let me caution you, my friends, this is not about wishful thinking or idle daydreaming. This is about a disciplined use of your imagination, coupled with a deep, unwavering faith in the creative power of your consciousness. It requires persistence and patience. For while the seed of your desire is planted instantly in the moment you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, it may take time for that seed to grow and bear fruit in your physical reality. During this period of gestation, you must guard your mind carefully. For doubts and fears will try to creep in, attempting to uproot the seed you have planted. This is where many falter, where many give up just before their desire is about to manifest. They say, I've tried this, and it doesn't work. But in saying so, they are once again affirming lack, once again pushing away that which they desire. Instead, you must persist in your assumption. You must live each day as though your desire were already fulfilled, regardless of any contrary evidence presented by your senses. For remember, your senses only show you a reflection of past states of consciousness. They cannot show you what is coming, what is already set in motion by your shift in consciousness. This persistence in assumption is what I call the art of patience. It is not a passive waiting, but an active state of being. It is living each day from the consciousness of already being or having that which you desire, knowing with unshakable faith that it must manifest in your physical reality. And here we come to another aspect of the paradox. As you persist in this state, as you continue to live from the end, something remarkable happens. You begin to enjoy the journey itself. The present moment becomes infused with the joy and fulfillment of your imagined future. And in this enjoyment of the present, in this cessation of striving for a future state, you open yourself up even more fully to receiving that which you have imagined. Consider the story of Joseph in the Bible. Sold into slavery by his brothers, imprisoned unjustly, he could have focused on his current circumstances, on his need to escape his situation. But instead, he lived from the state of being a ruler, of being wise and respected. And in time, he rose to become second only to Pharaoh in all of Egypt. Joseph's story illustrates a crucial point. Your circumstances do not determine your state of consciousness. Rather, your state of consciousness determines your circumstances. No matter where you find yourself, no matter what challenges you face, you have the power to choose your inner state, to live from the end. This is the true meaning of free will. It is not the ability to control external events, but the power to choose your inner state regardless of external circumstances. And in choosing your inner state, in assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you set in motion the forces that will reshape your outer world. But let us delve even deeper into this paradox. As you begin to master this art of living from the end, as you become adept at assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you may find that your desires themselves begin to change. What once seemed crucial and all-important may fade in significance. New higher aspirations may take their place. This too is part of the paradox of manifestation. For as you align yourself more and more with your true self, with the divine creative power within you, your desires naturally evolve. You begin to want not just for yourself, but for the greater good. Your manifestations become not just personal achievements, but gifts to the world. And here we touch upon the ultimate paradox. As you master the art of manifestation, as you learn to create your reality through the power of your consciousness, you may find that your greatest desire becomes simply to be an instrument of the divine, to allow the infinite creative power to flow through you unimpeded, to manifest not for personal gain, but for the upliftment of all. In this state, you no longer manifest from a place of lack or need. You manifest from a place of abundance, of overflowing love and creativity. And it is in this state that the most miraculous manifestations often occur. For when you align yourself fully with the divine creative power, when you become a clear channel for this power to flow into the world, you become capable of manifesting not just personal desires, but profound transformations that benefit all of humanity. This, my dear friends, is the highest form of manifestation. It is no longer about getting, but about giving. It is no longer about fulfilling personal desires, but about allowing yourself to be used as an instrument of the divine will. And paradoxically, it is in this state of complete surrender, of no longer needing or wanting anything for yourself, that you often receive more abundance than you ever dreamed possible. But how does one reach this exalted state? How does one move from manifesting personal desires to becoming a channel for divine manifestation? The path is the same as we have been discussing. It begins with assuming the state of the wish fulfilled, with living from the end. But in this case, the end you are living from is the state of being one with the divine creative power. Imagine yourself as a clear channel, a perfect instrument through which the infinite creativity of the universe flows. Feel the joy, the peace, the sense of purpose that comes with this state. Live each day from this consciousness and watch as your life transforms in ways you never imagined possible. This is not to say that you should deny or suppress your personal desires. Rather, it is about expanding your consciousness to include ever greater, more inclusive desires. It is about aligning your personal will with the divine will, recognizing that at the deepest level they are one and the same. As you practice this, you may find that the paradox of manifestation resolves itself. For when you are fully aligned with the divine creative power, when you are living as a clear channel for this power, there is no separation between wanting and having, between desiring and manifesting. In this state, creation becomes effortless, instantaneous. But let me caution you once again. This state is not reached through striving or effort. It is not something you can force or make happen through sheer willpower. Rather, it is a state that you allow yourself to fall into, like sinking into a warm bath. It comes through surrender, through letting go of all resistance, all doubt, all fear. This surrender, this letting go, brings us full circle to where we began. For it is in the state of no longer needing, of no longer desperately wanting, that we open ourselves fully to receiving. It is when we release our tight grip on our desires that we create the space for them to manifest. So, my dear friends, as you go forth from here, I urge you to practice this art of living from the end. Choose a desire, something you wish to manifest in your life. Then, instead of focusing on the lack of it, on the wanting of it, immerse yourself in the feeling of already having it. Live each day from that state of fulfillment. But go beyond this. Expand your consciousness to include ever greater desires. Allow yourself to become a channel for the divine creative power. Live from the state of being one with this power, of allowing it to flow through you unimpeded. And as you do this, watch for the paradox to unfold in your life. Notice how, as you release your attachment to outcomes, as you no longer desperately need your desires to manifest, they often appear in your life with an ease and grace that seems miraculous. Remember, the outer world is but a reflection of your inner state. Change your inner state, and the outer world must change to match it. This is the law, immutable and eternal. But the greatest change, the most profound transformation, comes when you align yourself fully with the divine creative power within you. In this alignment, in this surrender, you discover the ultimate truth, that you are not separate from the creative power of the universe, but are one with it. You are not merely a creature in the universe, but are the universe expressing itself in human form. And in this realization, all paradoxes dissolve, all limitations fall away. So go forth, my friends, and live from this truth. Live each day as though all your desires were already fulfilled, as though you were already one with the infinite creative power of the universe. For in truth you are. And as you live from this truth, you will manifest miracles not just in your own life, but in the lives of all those around you. This is your birthright, your true nature. Claim it. Live it. Be it. And watch as the paradox of manifestation unfolds in your life, bringing you more abundance, more joy, more love than you ever dreamed possible. For when you no longer need it, when you no longer cling to it with desperate desire, that is when it manifests. This is the paradox and this is the promise. Embrace it, embody it, and step into the limitless life that awaits you. Remember, my dear friends, that this journey of manifestation is not about accumulating things or achievements. It is about becoming more of who you truly are. It is about allowing the divine essence within you to express itself more fully in your life. As you continue to practice living from the end, as you persist in assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you will find that your entire being begins to shift. Your thoughts, your emotions, your very vibration aligns more and more with the reality you desire to create. This alignment is key, for manifestation is not about forcing the universe to bend to your will. It is about aligning yourself with the natural flow of creation, about becoming a conscious co-creator with the universe. Think of it like tuning a radio. When you tune to a specific frequency, you receive the broadcast on that frequency. Similarly, when you tune your consciousness to the frequency of your desired reality, you begin to receive the experiences, opportunities, and circumstances that match that frequency. But here's another paradox. The more you practice this art of manifestation, the more you realize that the true joy lies not in the getting, but in the being. The thrill is not in acquiring the object of your desire, but in experiencing yourself as the person who has that desire fulfilled. This shift in focus from getting to being is transformative. It frees you from the endless cycle of wanting and acquiring only to want more. Instead, it allows you to find fulfillment in the present moment, in the very act of being the person you aspire to be. And here's where the paradox deepens even further. As you find this fulfillment in being rather than getting, you often find that the things you once desperately wanted begin to flow into your life with ease. But by then you may find that you no longer need them in the way you once did. You appreciate them, you enjoy them, but your happiness, your sense of self-worth no longer depends on them. This state of non-attachment, of appreciating without needing, is the fertile ground in which miracles grow. It is a state of being that allows the universe to surprise and delight you with manifestations beyond your wildest dreams. But let me be clear, the state of non-attachment does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. On the contrary, it allows you to engage with life more fully, more passionately than ever before. Because when your happiness no longer depends on specific outcomes, you are free to throw yourself wholeheartedly into the experience, every endeavor. This is the state of inspired action, action taken not from a place of lack or need, but from a place of joy, of creative self-expression. And it is this inspired action, coupled with your aligned state of being, that often leads to the most magnificent manifestations. Consider the great innovators and creators throughout history. They did not create from a place of desperate need or want. They created from a place of inspired vision, of seeing possibilities where others saw only limitations. They lived from the end, embodying the reality they wished to create long before it manifested in the physical world. This brings us to another crucial aspect of the paradox of manifestation, the role of faith. Faith in this context is not blind belief or wishful thinking. It is a deep, unshakable knowing that what you have imagined must come to pass. It is the ability to see the invisible, to feel the intangible, to believe the incredible. This kind of faith is not always easy to maintain, especially when your physical senses tell you that nothing has changed. This is where persistence comes in. Persistence in assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Persistence in living from the end, even when all evidence seems to contradict your inner knowing. Remember, my dear friends, that your senses only show you the world as it was, not as it is becoming. They show you the effects of past thoughts and beliefs, not the causes you are setting in motion with your current state of consciousness. This is why it's crucial to base your faith not on what your eyes see, but on what your imagination shows you. For your imagination is the gateway to the infinite possibilities that exist in the realm of pure potential. It is through your imagination that you connect with the creative power of the universe. But here's another paradox. While faith is crucial, attachment to outcomes can hinder manifestation. This is where the art of surrendering comes in. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up on your desires. It means releasing your attachment to how and when they will manifest. When you surrender in this way, you open yourself up to possibilities beyond what your limited human mind can conceive. You allow the infinite intelligence of the universe to bring about your manifestation in ways that are often far more wonderful than anything you could have planned. This surrender, this letting go, is what allows the paradox of manifestation to unfold in your life. When you no longer need it, when you're no longer desperate for it, that's often when it appears. Because in that state of surrender, of non-attachment, you are most aligned with the natural flow of creation. Think of it like planting a seed. You plant the seed, your desire, in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind through imagination and feeling. You water it with your faith and persistence in assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But then you must let it grow in its own time. You don't dig up the seed every day to see if it's growing. You trust in the unseen processes that are bringing your desire to fruition. This trust, this patience, is an integral part of the manifestation process. It allows the universe to work its magic, to bring together all the elements necessary for your desire to manifest in the best possible way. But patience doesn't mean passivity. While you're waiting for your desire to manifest, live fully in the present moment. Enjoy the journey. Find ways to embody the essence of what you're desiring right now. If you're manifesting wealth, find ways to feel abundant in your current circumstances. If you're manifesting love, be loving to yourself and others. This brings us to another important point. Manifestation is not just about changing your external reality. It's about transforming yourself in the process. As you persist in living from the end, as you continue to embody the person who already has what you desire, you undergo a profound inner transformation. You begin to shed limiting beliefs and negative thought patterns. You start to see yourself and the world around you in a new light. You become more confident, more empowered, more aligned with your true self. And it is this inner transformation that often paves the way for the outer manifestation. Because as you change, your vibration changes. And as your vibration changes, you naturally attract experiences and circumstances that match your new, elevated state of being. This is why the paradox of manifestation is so powerful. It's not just about getting what you want. It's about becoming the person who naturally attracts and creates what you want. It's about aligning yourself with the abundance, love, and success that are your birthright. As we near the end of our exploration of this profound paradox, I want to leave you with a final thought. The ultimate goal of manifestation is not to accumulate things or achievements. It's to fully express your divine nature, to become a clear channel through which the infinite creativity of the universe can float. When you reach this state, you no longer manifest from a place of lack or need. You manifest from a place of abundance, of overflowing love and creativity. Your desires become aligned with the highest good for all. And paradoxically, it's in this state of complete surrender that you often experience the most magnificent manifestations. So my dear friends, as you go forth from here, remember the paradox we've explored tonight. Remember that when you no longer need it, when you fully embody the state of already having it, that's when it often manifests. Live from the end. Persist in the assumption of your wish fulfilled. Have faith in the unseen processes that are bringing your desires to fruition. Surrender your attachment to outcomes. Allow yourself to be transformed in the process. And above all, Never forget that you are not separate from the creative power of the universe. You are one with it. You are it, expressing itself in human form. Embody this truth, live from this knowing, and watch as miracles unfold in your life. The paradox of manifestation is not just a principle to be understood intellectually. It is a truth to be lived, to be experienced in every moment of your existence. It is an invitation to step into your true power, to claim your divine heritage as a creator of your reality. So go forth, my friends, and create. Create with joy, with love, with the full knowledge of your oneness with the infinite. For in doing so, you not only manifest your desires, but you fulfill the very purpose of your existence, to be a living expression of the divine creative power that flows through all things. Remember, the world is yourself pushed out. Everything you see, everything you experience is a reflection of your own consciousness. Change your consciousness, and you change your world. This is the promise and the challenge of the paradox of manifestation. Embrace it fully, live it boldly, and watch as your life transforms in ways more beautiful and magnificent than you ever dared to imagine. For when you no longer need it, when you are it, that is when it manifests. This is the paradox, and this is the promise. Now go and live it. When I say God, I'm not referring to some distant deity sitting on a cloud. No, the God I speak of is the divine presence within you, your own wonderful human imagination. This God power resides in the very depths of your being, waiting to be recognized and harnessed. Many of you have come here tonight feeling burdened by worries and doubts. You carry the weight of unfulfilled desires, unresolved problems, and seemingly impossible situations. But I tell you this, the very act of worry is a misuse of your creative power. When you worry, you are imagining, yes, imagining the very things you do not want to experience. And as we know, imagination creates reality. So tonight, I invite you to embark on a grand experiment. Give your desires, your problems, your impossible situations to God, to your imagination, and then stop worrying about them. This may seem counterintuitive, even irresponsible to some of you, but I assure you it is the most powerful and effective thing you can do. Let me explain how this works. Your consciousness, your I am, is God. It is the only creative power in the universe. When you say I am, you are invoking this creative force. And whatever follows that I am becomes the mold into which this creative power flows. So when you say I am worried, or I am sick, or I am broke, you are literally creating those states in your reality. But when you say I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am loved, you set in motion the creative forces that will bring these states into your experience. Now, giving it to God means turning your desire over to your imagination. It means creating a scene in your mind that implies your desire is already fulfilled. You see, your imagination does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagined. To your imagination, an vividly imagined is as real as an event you physically experienced. So, if you have a health concern, instead of worrying about it day and night, give it to God. Create a scene in your imagination where you are the embodiment of perfect health. Feel the relief, the joy, the gratitude of being completely well. Make this scene as vivid and as real as an event. If you're facing financial difficulties, instead of constantly fretting about bills and debts, give it to God. Imagine a scene where you are financially abundant. Feel the security, the freedom, the generosity that comes with having more than enough. Make it real in your imagination. If you're longing for a loving relationship, stop worrying about being alone. Give it to God. Create a scene where you are deeply loved and cherished. Feel the warmth, the connection, the joy of being in a fulfilling relationship. Live in that state in your imagination. The key here is to make these imaginal acts so vivid, so real, that when you open your eyes, you almost expect to see the physical manifestation right in front of you. And here's the crucial part. Once you've done this, you must stop worrying. You must have complete faith that what you have imagined is now in the process of becoming your physical reality. This is what it means to give it to God and stop worrying. You are entrusting your desire to the unfailing creative power of your own wonderful imagination. And then you are stepping back, relinquishing control, and allowing that power to work in ways that your rational mind cannot conceive. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Neville, how can simply imagining something make it real? Let me assure you, this is not mere positive thinking or wishful daydreaming. This is a fundamental law of consciousness. Your imagination is the very workshop in which your life is shaped and formed. Everything that exists in your world was once only imagined. The clothes you're wearing, the chair you're sitting on, the building we're in, all of these were first conceived in someone's imagination before they became physical realities. Your entire life, your job, your relationships, your home, your state of health, all of it is the result of what you have been imagining and assuming to be true. So when I tell you to give it to God and stop worrying, I am inviting you to put this principle to the test in your own life. I am challenging you to take whatever seems impossible in your life right now and hand it over to the God within you, your imagination. Let's take a moment to really let this sink in. Close your eyes, if you will. Take a deep breath. Now bring to mind something in your life that has been causing you worry and anxiety. Something that seems impossible to resolve or achieve. Got it? Good. Now, instead of dwelling on the problem, I want you to create a scene in your mind that implies this situation is already resolved. What would you see, hear, and feel if this impossible situation had been miraculously solved? Who would you tell? How would you celebrate? Create this scene in as much detail as you can. Make it so real that you can taste it, touch it, smell it, feel the relief, the joy, the gratitude that would accompany this realized desire. Let every cell in your body vibrate with the assumption that this is now your reality. Now open your eyes. How do you feel? Different, don't you? This is the power of giving it to God. You have just planted a seed in the fertile soil of your imagination. And like any seed, if you do not dig it up with doubt and worry, it must grow into your physical reality. This is the true meaning of faith. It's not about believing in something despite evidence to the contrary. True faith is the evidence of things not seen in the physical world, but felt and experienced as real in your imagination. When you give something to God and stop worrying, you are exercising this kind of faith. You are declaring to the universe, it's done. And then you go about your life from the assumption that what you have imagined is now in the process of becoming your physical reality. Now I can almost hear some of you thinking, but Neville, what about action? Don't we need to do something to make our desires come true? And to this I say, inspired action will flow naturally from your changed state of consciousness. You see, once you have truly given your desire to God, once you have felt it as real in your imagination, you will naturally begin to think, feel, and act in accordance with that new reality. You won't have to force yourself to take action. The right actions will occur to you and you will find yourself naturally compelled to take them. This is why I emphasize the importance of the state of consciousness. Your actions are always in alignment with your dominant state of consciousness. So instead of trying to change things by sheer force or willpower, focus on changing your state of consciousness through the use of your imagination. Let me give you a personal example. Many years ago, I found myself in New York City with no money and no job prospects. The rational thing to do would have been to pound the pavement, knocking on doors and handing out resumes. But instead, I gave it to God. I imagined myself sleeping in my own apartment. I felt the comfort of the bed, the softness of the pillow. I heard the sounds of the city outside my window. I smelled the fresh coffee brewing in the kitchen. I made this scene so real that when I opened my eyes, I was almost surprised to find myself still in my current circumstances. And then I stopped worrying about it. I relinquished all anxiety about my situation. I lived from the assumption that I was now a man with a comfortable home in the city. Within a week, I received a phone call from an old acquaintance I hadn't spoken to in years. He offered me a job that not only paid well, but also provided an apartment as part of the compensation. The impossible had become possible, not through my own striving, but through giving it to God and stopping the worry. This, my dear friends, is the secret I want to impart to you tonight. Give it to God and stop worrying. He will do the impossible. But remember, this God is not outside of you. It is your own wonderful human imagination. Now, some of you might be wondering, but what if what I want is truly impossible? What if it goes against the laws of nature? To this I say, who are you to decide what is possible or impossible? The history of human achievement is filled with examples of people accomplishing what was once thought impossible. Flight was once thought impossible. Space travel was once thought impossible. Instant global communication was once thought impossible. Yet here we are, living in a world where all these impossibilities are now commonplace realities. Your imagination is not bound by the so-called laws of nature. It operates in a dimension where all things are possible. When you truly give your desire to God, to your imagination, you are tapping into this limitless realm of possibility. So I urge you, do not limit yourself by deciding what is or isn't possible. Your only job is to imagine the end result you desire and to feel it as real. Let the God within you, your imagination, figure out the how. Now, let's address another common concern. Some of you might be thinking, but Neville have tried this before and it didn't work. If this is you, I want you to consider something. Did you truly give it to God? Did you really stop worrying? You see, many people think they're applying this principle when in reality, they're still holding on to their old beliefs and worries. They imagine their desire for a few minutes and then spend the rest of the day worrying about their current circumstances. This is not giving it to God. This is like planting a seed and then immediately digging it up to see if it's growing. You must have patience and unwavering faith. You must persist in the assumption that what you have imagined is now a reality, even when your physical senses tell you otherwise. Remember, the physical world is a shadow, a reflection of what you have been imagining and assuming to be true. It takes time for the physical to catch up with the imaginal. But I promise you, if you truly give it to God and stop worrying, the physical must and will conform to your imaginal act. Let me share with you another principle that will help you in this practice. Your desire, once imagined as fulfilled, has no power to realize itself unless you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is not what you want that you attract. You attract what you believe to be true. So it's not enough to simply visualize what you want. You must feel it as real. You must live from the assumption that you already have what you desire. This feeling, this assumption is the secret that makes the difference between idle daydreaming and actively creating your reality. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are aligning yourself with the reality where your desire is already a fact. You are tuning your consciousness to the frequency of that reality. And like a radio tuning into a specific station, you will begin to pick up and experience the elements of that reality in your physical world. Now, I want to address something that many of you may be struggling with. You might be thinking, but Neville, how can I feel something is real when all the evidence in my physical world tells me otherwise? This, my friends, is where the true test of faith comes in. You must be willing to deny the evidence of your senses. You must be bold enough to imagine and feel a reality that contradicts your current circumstances. This takes courage. It takes practice. But it is the very key to creating the life you desire. Think of it this way. Your physical senses show you what has been created by your past imaginings and assumptions. But your imagination shows you what can be, what is waiting to be made manifest through your renewed assumptions and feelings. So, when you give your desire to God, to your imagination, you are choosing to put more faith in the unseen reality of your imagination than in the seen reality for physical world. This is the kind of faith that moves mountains. This is the kind of faith that makes the impossible possible. Let's take a moment to practice this. I want you to think of something in your life that you deeply desire but have been struggling to achieve. It could be anything: better health, financial abundance, a loving relationship, a successful career. Whatever it is, bring it to mind now. Now, instead of focusing on the lack of this thing in your life, I want you to create a scene that implies you already have it. Make it as vivid and as real as you can. See it, hear it, feel it. Let every cell in your body resonate with the assumption that this is now your reality. As you do this, you may notice your mind trying to interrupt with doubts and objections. This is normal. Your rational mind, conditioned by past experiences and current circumstances, will try to pull you back to your old reality. But remember, you are more than your rational mind. You are a divine created being made in the image of God. So when these doubts arise, gently but firmly set them aside. Return your focus to the feeling of your desire fulfilled. Bask in the joy, the relief, the gratitude of having what you want. Let this feeling soak into every fiber of your being. This, my friends, is what it means to give it to God and stop worrying. You are entrusting your desire to the infallible creative power of your imagination. You are relinquishing control to a higher power, the God within you. Now, here's the crucial part. Once you've done this, you must persist in this new assumption. You must live from the state of the wish fulfilled. This doesn't mean you deny your current circumstances. Rather, you acknowledge them as the shadows of past imaginings while putting more faith in your new imaginal act. This persistence is key. You see, most people give up too soon. They may imagine their desire for a day or two, and then when they don't see immediate results, they conclude that it doesn't work. But remember, creation is finished. Your imaginal act is instantly created in a dimension beyond space and time. It then begins to work its way into your three-dimensional reality. How long this takes depends on many factors, including the naturalness of the state to you and your ability to persist in your new assumption. But I promise you this, if you truly give it to God and stop worrying, if you persist in the assumption that your desire is now a fact, it must externalize itself in your world. Now I want to address something that many of you may be struggling with. You might be thinking, but Neville, I've been hurt before. I've been disappointed. How can I trust in this process? And to this I say, the very fact that you can imagine it means it's possible for you. You see, you cannot desire something that is not already within you to fulfill. The desire itself is proof of your capacity to realize it. Your imagination is showing you a possibility that already exists within you. Your job is simply to bring it forth through your assumption and faith. Think of it this way. When you plant a seed in the ground, do you worry about how it will grow? Do you dig it up every day to check on its progress? Of course not. You trust in the invisible processes of nature to bring forth the plant in due time. The same principle applies to the seeds you plant in your imagination. When you give your desire to God, when you plant the seed of your imaginal act, you must trust in the invisible, unfailing processes of creation to bring it forth in your physical reality. This trust, this unwavering faith, is what allows the miracle to unfold. It creates a clear channel through which your imagined reality can flow into your physical experience. Worry, doubt, and anxiety only serve to muddy this channel and delay the manifestation of your desire. So I urge you, give it to God and stop worrying. Trust in the creative power of your imagination. Have faith in the law that states whatever you assume and feel to be true must and will objectify itself in your world. Now, some of you might be wondering about the role of action in this process. You might be thinking, but Neville, surely we need to do something to make our desires come true. And to this I say, inspired action will naturally flow from your changed state of consciousness. You see, once you have truly assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you will naturally begin to think, feel, and act in accordance with that new reality. You won't have to force yourself to take action. The right actions will occur to you, and you will find yourself naturally compelled to take them. This is why I emphasize the importance of the state of consciousness. Your actions are always in alignment with your dominant state of consciousness. So instead of trying to change things by sheer force or willpower, focus on changing your state of consciousness through the use of your imagination. Let me give you another example from my own life. Years ago, I desired to travel to Barbados, but I had no money for such a trip. The rational thing would have been to start saving money, to look for better job opportunities, to perhaps even give up on the idea altogether. But instead, I gave it to God. I imagined myself in Barbados. I felt the warmth of the sun on my skin, heard the sound of the waves crashing on the shore, smelled the salt in the air. I made this scene so real that when I opened my eyes, I was almost surprised to find myself still in New York. And then I stopped worrying about how it would happen. I relinquished all anxiety about money or travel arrangements. I lived from the assumption that my trip to Barbados was a done deal. Within a matter of weeks, an opportunity presented itself that I could never have conceived of with my rational mind. A friend offered me a job that required travel to, you guessed it, Barbados. Not only was my trip fully paid for, but I was also compensated for my time there. The impossible had become possible, not through my own striving, but through giving it to God and stopping the worry. This, my dear friends, is the power that lies within each and every one of you. It is the power to create your reality through the use of your imagination. When you give your desires to God, to your imagination, and truly stop worrying, you open yourself up to infinite possibilities. You allow the creative power of the universe to work through you in ways that your limited, rational mind could never conceive. So tonight, I challenge you to put this principle to the test in your own life. Take whatever seems impossible right now, whatever has been causing you worry and anxiety, and give it to God. Create a scene in your imagination that implies your desire is already fulfilled. Feel it as real. Live from that assumption. And then let go. Stop worrying about how it will happen. Trust in the unfailing creative power of your imagination. Remember, the world is your imagination pushed out. Everything you see around you, everything you experience is a reflection of your past thoughts and assumptions. By changing your imagination, by giving your desires to God and living from the assumption of the wish fulfilled, you set in motion a new chain of causation that must result in the realization of your desire. As you leave here tonight, I want you to carry with you this profound truth. You are the operant power in your world. Your imagination is God in action. When you give your desires to this God and stop worrying, you align yourself with the creative power of the universe. You open yourself up to miracles. You make the impossible possible. So go forth from here with a new understanding of your own divine nature. Know that within you lies the power to shape your reality. Use your imagination wisely and lovingly. Give your desires to God, stop worrying, and watch as the miraculous unfolds in your life. For truly with God, with your imagination, all things are possible.